Missouri City. It's certainly good to be with you again as we're gathering for this event. It's certainly good to be able to have this event so we can introduce you to the candidates and listen to them and to see where they are and where they want to take our city. We're excited today to have those who are here with us. I want to say on the front end that we invited all of them, especially the incumbent. We invited them. We gave everybody an invitation to come. Just want to let you know that we weren't partial, so that everybody was invited with RSVP. And so if you don't see someone, it's because perhaps they chose not to come. But do want to let you know that we're not partial. We don't have, that is not the spirit of this. And so tonight, as we gather, thank the pastors for coming here tonight. Pastor Young, Pastor O'Neill, Pastor Childress, Pastor Scott Echols, Pastor Bell. Thank you again also, Pastor Bell, Destry Bell here, who is hosting us tonight. Well, we're delighted to be here tonight. We're going to have a wonderful time, as always, whenever we gather in the Lord's name. So what I would like to do, first of all, let's ask the Lord to bless our time as we've gathered. And those of you who understand the power of prayer, you pray with me. Father, how we do thank you again for this day that you have given us. We do love you. We honor you. We come before you now, Lord, as you have said to us, if we acknowledge you in all of our ways, that you will direct our paths. And so here we are. We pray that you bless our evening today. Bless these candidates. We're here, oh God, to hear them, and we pray for them. We pray that they will have your heart to lead your people. We pray, Father, that you will just be with them, help them to articulate their vision for the city. And so, Father, again, we thank you for them. We thank you for these pastors as well, whose heart is that we have those who will lead the city in prosperity. Lord, lead the city where there is safety and certainly where it is honoring in your name. And so as we come tonight, we do ask that you bless our efforts, all that will be said or done to your great honor and glory. We ask in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Well, all right, we want to get started tonight. And I'm going to ask, we will have two moderators tonight with us. Pastor Scott Nicholas is one of our moderators, and he will be our first moderator. And we will do in this order. We will have our council members, candidates. We will give them the first opportunity to kind of share their vision with us. And then afterwards, there will be Pastor Robert Childress will come. Pastor Robert Childress will come, and he will take over and moderate the mayoral candidates for us tonight. And so we ask that you be attentive and just be prayerful. Again, we thank you for chiming in for this event. So I'm going to yield now the floor to Pastor Scott Nichols, and he will lead us further. All right. Oh, Mike, that's right.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. My name is Pastor Scott Nichols, and it is an honor of mine to serve as one of two moderators for the evening, representing the Fort Bend Pastors Association. Tonight, we will begin with our council member candidates, giving each of them 4 minutes to speak. And to the candidates, you will hear at the end of 3 minutes, you will hear one bell giving you the warning that you have 1 minute left, and then you will hear multiple bells when your time is up. When all of the city council candidates have spoken, we allotted 30 minutes for questions. It depends on how many questions are submitted as to how long we will go with those. But if you're virtually watching tonight, you have questions for the candidates, you can send them to the chat box, and we'll present those questions to the candidates when all of them have completed their introductions. As most of you may know, there are two council positions up for election on November the 3rd. They are the at-large council positions 1 and 2. There are 2 candidates running for position 1, 3 candidates running for position 2. Again, each candidate will have 4 minutes to introduce themselves and make remarks. We will begin with candidate for council member at large, position 1, Reginald Pearson. Mr. Pearson, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you. I have a few notes here that I want to read. It says, an author once wrote, the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. My name is Reginald Pearson, and my why is to serve, and it is in that vein that I hope to be your next council member at large, position 1 for Missouri City. Service is a value many of us hold, particularly pastors who make up this association. Thank you, Fort Bend Pastors Association, for service in the community through this forum tonight. I come to you with hope in the possibilities of what our great city can become. Our city has some of the best residents in the country. We are a city that started off with a 2-lane street on Texas Parkway and very little development. What we now see off of Highway 6, FM 1092, and Texas Parkway has happened in the last 30 years. Our founding fathers envisioned a bedroom city, but as a community, we have pushed and we're pushing more. I want to serve in getting us to the next level in economic development, where developers and businesses see us as open for business and not anti-development. I want to lead the charge in engaging and listening to our citizens for a more transparent and accountable city government. My plan is to bring back to City Hall a sure commitment to Missouri City residents to listen, to do the right thing for residents, and to always communicate and be honest about the state of our great city. A vote for me is a vote to, 1, restore accountability and transparency to the at-large position number 1, reestablish community within our great city, and last, revive our area through public safety, development, redevelopment, and engagement. But also, we should address our aging infrastructure. We are a 60-plus-year-old city. A recent study shows that we have streets in need of a repair and or complete replacement. You know what? Let's do something about that. Service is nothing new to me and not something I just decided to do in running for council. It's who I am and what I do daily and weekly. I serve as a deacon at my church where I've been a member for over 20 years. I am the current HOA president for my subdivision, 5 years to present. I'm a former commissioner on the Planning and Zoning Commission where I was appointed in 2016 and a previous District A council member appointed in 2018 when I was in my second 2-year term on Planning and Zoning. Because I believe in our children, young men and women in our community are important. I also serve on the campus-based leadership team at Thurgood Marshall. Professionally, I've spent 31 years in the specialty food industry and procurement, where I am currently responsible for the procurement of over $5 million of inventory for local stores annually. I understand budgets. I understand the procurement process. I understand the importance of networking and building relationships with stakeholders. Missouri City, we can do better. We should have representation that listens to the people. After all, we are elected by the people. Send me back to City Hall with your concerns in hand to bring forth a brighter tomorrow. Vote for Reginald Pearson for at-large position number 1. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pearson. And we will now hear from candidate for council member at large position 2, Ms. Lynn Clauser. Ms. Clauser, you have 4 minutes, and I would ask you, as a reminder to all of the candidates, make sure that you speak directly into the mic so that the audience can hear you.
I'd like to stand if y'all, this is okay with you all.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lynn Clauser, and I am a candidate for City Council at Large, Position 2. I love my city. I've been a member of this community for 40 years. Hard to believe that, but I wouldn't imagine being anywhere else. I'm raising my 2 children here, Lauren, who's 9, and my son, who is 15. He is on the autism spectrum. That can be challenging at times, but I tell you what, we've pushed through. So all of the residents out there who are dealing with special needs, who are dealing with differently able children, I understand. I have been actively involved in our community for all my life, from picking up trash on the side of Texas Parkway when it had the movie theater there, to different organizations. I have been actively involved in my community. I have been present. My middle name is work. Residents of Missouri City, my neighbors, I want to serve you as your next city councilwoman. My why. The reason why I want to serve you is because earlier this year I witnessed some actions from our current city council members that didn't lend to transparency. It hurt my heart. I was in the front row of that meeting. And when I left, I just thought, wow, why doesn't somebody do something? Why not me? So I thought about it, I prayed about it, and I decided, you know what? That person is me. So I decided to run. I am a development director for Hope for Three, which is a nonprofit local 501c3 that helps families and children with autism. You see, my life is based on service. My life is based on advocacy. I work with people. I've worked with thousands of people to get them help, and I do that for free. The company actually asked me to come on because they see my work. They saw my work, and they wanted me to come on payroll, and so I did. So I'm doing work that I love. I'm helping people, and advocating for people is what I do. Missouri City, I want to serve you. I promise to be accessible. I will be visible. I will return your calls, your emails. I will come meet you where you are. From HOA meetings to pastors associations to realtors associations to developers, we need to have, all of us have a seat at the table so we can find out how to make our community the best place to live, work, and play. Missouri City, I am asking for your vote. I want to serve you. I want to work with you, and I want to work for you. So I'm asking you to vote for me. You have not gotten to the end of your ballot until you voted for Lynn. You haven't gotten to the end until you voted for Lynn. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Klauser. And now we will hear from the other candidate for council member at large position 2, Mr. James Mabel. Mr. Mabel, you now have 4 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you for tuning in this evening. My name is James Mabel, and I am running for City Council at large position number 2. And I want you to know that I've been serving people in different capacities all of my adult life. I first started serving people in the Marines. I served in the Marines and stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. After I finished the Marines, I came back to Texas, and I actually started a career working in the service industry. For all my 20s, I worked as a waiter, and I did personal security. And then later in my 20s, I decided to go to college. And after college, I started serving people in a totally different capacity. I've been serving and helping people find their calling in life ever since I finished college. And so down the road, I've learned that what's most important in securing the American dream is finding a career path, work, the economy. And so I've been living here in Missouri City for 7 years. My wife has been here for 20 years. And as I drive down Texas Parkway, every day I see an opportunity to develop our city from within downtown Missouri City. I also saw a lot of other things that are going on in our city, and I felt like it is time for our city to have a fresh perspective. So now I'm running for city council. And I'm running because I care about people, and I care about people's lives. I care about people's finances. I know that there are people right now in Missouri City that are struggling. Those who may have COVID, recovering from COVID, those who may have passed away from COVID, those who may have lost their jobs because of COVID. And I want to ensure that our city is thinking about our financial well-being as well. And that's why I'm passionate about our economy. I've seen Missouri City grow and expand, go from that bedroom community to now we need to focus on taking our economy to the next level. We need to diversify our economy. We need to ensure that not just jobs, but we also have amenities. We have opportunities for people to enjoy meals with their families. We have opportunities for people to buy cars, furniture, do excellent things in our city. I'm tired of seeing that our sales tax revenue is being lost to other municipalities. I'm tired of hearing that we could actually have greater revenue for our budget, but our budget is being sacrificed to other city municipalities. And I know that we have the economic ability because we have an excellent homeownership rate here in Missouri City. We have an excellent bedroom community that we've built a foundation upon, but now it is time to take our economy and our city to the next level. And I want you to know another thing. When I'm on the city council, I will ensure that I hear you. I will ensure that I implement your ideas and your pursuits. I will ensure that I am visible. I will ensure that I am available to hear your feedback about where we should go on the city council. So I will be loud on the city council because of you. I will ensure that our city council is always thinking about what's in the interest of not just residents on one part of the city, but residents throughout our city. And I will ensure that our city council is thinking about the heart of Missouri City, that it's thinking about our major corridors. That's Texas Parkway and Cartwright. I am tired of seeing these buildings that are dilapidated. I'm tired of seeing Texas Parkway being an open pasture. I'm tired of seeing that open 50 acres. It is now time to take Texas Parkway and Cartwright and the rest of Missouri City to the next level. And in order for that to happen, we need fresh perspectives on our city council. We need fresh ideas. We need passionate individuals representing you on the city council. So I hope to have your support here in November. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mabel. Now we will pose some questions to our city council candidates. And we're going to ask this question of each candidate and give them 2 minutes to respond. And the first question, as in your role as at-large council person, you would serve the entire city. So the question that we ask you is, what will you do to engage and interact with constituents if elected to serve? Mr. Pearson, you may go first.
Thank you. Well, one of the first things I would do is, as an at-large position, council member, I should say, it's easy. First of all, you would attend all of the HOAs. What I've seen personally is there's been a segment of individuals that have been overlooked. One of the first things that I would do is reach out to every HOA, get their schedule of their meetings, make sure that I would get on that particular calendar and attend those so that I can introduce myself to the various communities.
Okay, Ms. Klauser.
So for me, mine is a little similar. I'm already, as someone who loves connecting with the public, I'm already connecting. As I'm meeting residents and voters, right now what I'm doing is talking to them and I'm enjoying engaging with them. When I'm elected, I will be present at HOA meetings on a regular basis. I will conduct quarterly town hall meetings alongside my district counterpart. I will also, again, be accessible and visible. Not just that, but we have to think about more than just our residents. We have to think about our organizations like the Fort Bend Pastors Association, the realtors, developers, investors. Everybody needs to have a seat at the table and everybody's voice needs to be heard. So my line would be open, I would be accessible and visible. And I think that's something that we're not seeing right now and one of the reasons why I'm running. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Mabel.
So I think it's important to first establish rapport with my district counterparts. As an at-large council member, I have the luxury of engaging all other district members. What's most important is ensuring that we go out into the community together. So if I'm going out into my district where I live in Quail Valley, I'm partnering with Floyd Emery. I'm ensuring that he knows that I'm going to the HOA meetings, that I'm going to functions in that area. But I think also what's important is ensuring that HOAs have a greater representation in the decision-making process in the city council. Right now, there's an HOA liaison, but I would propose something greater, that HOA presidents are part of a body, and they participate in the decision-making process as well on the city council to ensure that residents throughout our city are heard. Their feedback and their thoughts are taken into consideration when we make decisions on the city council.
All right. Thank you very much. The next question that we would like for each of you to answer is, if elected to serve at large, what would your top three priorities be that you would like to accomplish in the next 2 years? And we'll start with Ms. Klauser this time.
Small businesses are my heart, and it takes a lot to open up a small business, and so a lot of our small businesses are hurting right now. I would make sure that our small businesses had what they needed to thrive. I have 2 friends that live in Missouri City and have their businesses in Missouri City, and they had to close. And so I don't want to see any more businesses close. So small businesses. Secondly, Texas Parkway. Texas Parkway has been a hot spot, hot topic for many, many years. Let's move the needle on it. Let's move the needle on it. And I just want to make sure that our residents feel a sense of peace at once and for all, so that they have representation that they can count on. As I'm going around talking to many residents, they don't feel like, many of them don't even know who their city council representative is. So I want them to have that reassurance that they have somebody that will work with them and will work for them and knows that all of Missouri City matters, all people in Missouri City matter, and somebody that has an attitude that wants to be inclusive of everybody, regardless of their age, race, gender, socioeconomic status, political party affiliation, or different abilities. Everybody matters. This is our city, my city, your city. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Pearson, your top 3 priorities for the next 2 years?
Well, I guess I'll stand up this time. You know what, the first thing that I would do, my observation has been, what I've seen is, we need to unify the city. There's been this conversation that they're the tale of 2 cities. I think that what we should do is look at the diversity that we have and show that as a positive. Right now, it's being looked at as a negative. So my first thing would be to find ways to unify the city so that we could be on one accord. The second thing is the voice of the people has been ignored at City Hall. There's been no accountability. There's been no transparency there. And we got to get back to the basics. First, unify the city, hold them accountable, show some transparency, and let the citizens know that we are listening to them. Attending the HOA meetings, of course, you have to work with the various council members for the districts, but I think it's important that right now, with the way the city is divided, we need to make an all-out effort to unite the city and highlight the fact that diversity is good, and appreciate and respect and show love towards one another.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mabel?
So I'm going to double down on HOA representation in the decision-making process. Of course, we're going to encourage residents to be a part of their HOA, but we need the residents' feedback in Missouri City. So that's first, is increasing HOA representation. I will hit the ground running in that vein. Second, I think it's very important to understand what the Economic Development Committee is doing. I'm passionate about what I see on Texas Parkway and Cartwright. As an at-large member, I'm not saying that I focus just on those areas, but those areas represent the majority of our city. So I need to see what the Economic Development Committee is doing. Also, I think it's very, very important to establish relationships with businesses in our city. I understand that as a role at City Council is oversight, but I think it's very important for me to get out into the community and build relationships with our business community. I need them to know that I have their ear as well, that I'm willing to listen and get their feedback, because they should be part of the decision-making process as well, because we need to focus on our economy first. We've done an excellent job with our community as far as subdivisions, building homes, but we need to focus on our economy. There are many people in this city that need our oversight and our leadership in this area.
Okay, thank you very much. Third question. There is a perception that Missouri City is now being controlled by outside influences. If elected to serve, what will you do to maintain your own voice while also resisting undue pressures from the outside. This time we'll start with Mr. Mabel.
First, I've been running for city council for a very short amount of time. And in my time of getting the word out about my campaign and my vision for the city, I can understand where that sentiment is coming from. I think it's very, very important for us to stay focused on our residents, focused on our city internally. I will ensure that on the city council, that we have our residents be a part of the decision-making process, as I said before. And that is primarily because I want to hear residents. I understand that Missouri City has focused so much on Highway 6 that there are unincorporated areas that have influence. And actually, a lot of the people that have ran have focused on that area of the city, on the unincorporated areas. And I want to focus on our internal city. And that's why I mentioned Texas Parkway and Cartwright. I will not let those external voices impact our momentum and where we're going as a city.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pearson. Would you like to address that question?
Sure, it's very easy. First of all, do what's right. Base the decisions on the facts. Not have the willingness to compromise your integrity. I've been in Missouri City since 1991. I've served on council. I've heard those things. I've seen the actions of folks that have fallen into that pattern. It's just real simple. Let's stick to do what's right for the people and not some segment of individuals that, don't reside in the city. It's just very simple. Let's just do what's right.
All right, thank you, Ms. Klauser.
Yeah, so again, did I tell y'all I love my city? I wouldn't let anybody do anything that would be divisive to my city. I wouldn't let somebody come in my home, a stranger come in my home and try to tell me what to do. My father always taught me that to do the right thing when nobody's looking. And outside voices they don't belong here. I would always keep this in mind. Do the will of the people. Do the will of the people. As long as I keep that in mind, then we're going to be good, Missouri City. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next question, what is your position with regard to mayoral term limits? We will start with Mr. Pearson this time.
You know, I've given it some thought, still trying to figure that out, but to be quite honest with you, I think that term limits would allow us to be effective in the time frame that you are going to be on there. I think that sometimes the longer you're on there, not any disrespect to our former mayor that was on there for a long time, I think that that keeps things in perspective. So I wouldn't be totally against term limits for the mayor. I think it would allow us to continue to bring fresh ideas in. Things wouldn't get stagnant. And it also prevents undue influence, because after you've been there for a while, there's always a possibility, not insinuating anything, but I think that it'll keep it fresh. It'll allow the individual that's in that capacity to be effective, understanding that it's not forever.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Klauser.
Yes, so I am perfectly fine with term limits for mayor. Again, it allows for different perspectives, fresh perspectives, new perspectives, maybe perspectives that the previous mayor didn't have to move the city forward. So yes, I'm for mayoral limits.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mabel.
So first, I want to thank the previous mayor who served for 24 years in that capacity for his service, because this is something that takes someone being very passionate about what they do, serving in the community. And so all of us have the best intentions when deciding to run for public office. But what I think is important is to remind all of us that we're not career politicians. So it's very, very important that we set limits for the mayor. That's a very, very influential role in the Missouri City Society, but these roles are very influential in the community. And so I think it's very, very important to establish limits for the mayor position as well as the city council. I am not running to stay on the city council forever. As you know by now, I'm passionate about our economy, and I want to see that through. I want to ensure that our city council and mayor are focused on our economy, laser focused. But I also understand that there are others that should serve. There are others that should come up, rise up, and provide feedback and run themselves. And I want to champion them by ensuring that I step back when that time has come.
Okay. Mr. Mabel, we're going to start with you again for the next question. And that question is, as you know, Missouri City is a city manager. We have a city manager form of government. Do you support that form of government? And if not, what form of government would you like to see and why?
So it's all about setting best practices. Think about what's happening locally in the area. Our mayor in the city of Houston holds that capacity and manages the city. I could say this, that there are people with excellent experience who are managing cities, city processes as city managers. And there are excellent individuals that run for mayor and that are in that role that could manage the city as well. I'm very flexible as far as the city manager focused government or a mayor strong government. I think what's most important is if we move to a mayor strong government, that we have term limits for the mayor position, and to ensure that fresh perspectives and new ideas are brought into that role for our city.
Thank you, Mr. Mabel. Mr. Pearson, would you like to answer that question?
I can answer that very quickly. Yes, I do support the city manager form of government. I could say that once again very quickly. Yes, I do support the city manager form of government.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Klauser.
I support the city manager council form of government because it eliminates, as you said before, outside influences. Plain and simple.
Okay. And then one final question. Why should citizens vote for you instead of your opponent? What sets you apart from the others? And we will go with Mr. Pearson first.
What sets me apart? Some individuals are in capacities that they're in for various reasons. I'm running for council because I'm concerned about the city and what's going on. I'm just like the rest of the citizens of Missouri City. I'm a homeowner and I'm a taxpayer. And I see the things that are going on council that I'm not very happy with. What sets us aside is what's in my heart, the passion, the commitment, the love. I'll be very candid with you. I was appointed to council in 2018. I served for 1 year. It was very effective. They talk about Texas Parkway. I can share 2 things that I was working on that once I get back on council, I'll follow up on those things. But I lost by 69 votes. Why would I subject myself to this anymore unless I was just a glutton for pain? I love the city. I've been here. I've raised my kids here. I dropped my kids off when they were young to that movie theater that used to be on Texas Parkway. I'm committed to this city. I'm pounding the pavement myself. You know why? Because I want to see what the various communities look like. I want to see what the various individuals look like that live in those areas. I'm not just showing up to things because I'm campaigning. I continue to be out involved in the community because I love the city and I'm committed to it. So if you want to show the distinction, I'm committed, I'm passionate, and it comes from the heart. It doesn't switch on and off.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Mr. Mabel, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, we are in the midst of a recession. And as I said earlier, that many people have been affected by COVID. My experience, myself personally, was I graduated college during the Great Recession in 2009. And I had a very difficult time finding a job. It actually took me 2 years to find a full-time job. And so that process of applying for jobs, not getting any callbacks, having only a couple of interviews, no responses, has really left a mark on me. Ever since I started working in the field of career services, I've been completely driven of paying it forward, ensuring that people can find employment. And so that's one of the main reasons why I'm so focused on our economy. I want to provide opportunities for you. I want you to be successful. That's why I'm running. I will continue on and pursue my career and continue to help those with employment, but I'm wanting to do something special with the city council here in Missouri City. So that's why I'm unique. It's my own life experiences. I've endured things through that experience similar to what you are going through right now, and I ask for your support.
All right, thank you, Ms. Klauser.
Yes. I love my city. I am different from the other candidates because I have been involved and remain involved. It doesn't take an election for me to step in the forefront and help my community. That is my heart. And people that know me, they know that. You won't just see me during election time, but you'll see me all the time. Relationship building is key. I have a career of sales and marketing over 25 years. Relationship building is key. When you talk about developers and businesses coming here, relationship building is so key. As I'm knocking on doors, talking to residents, I'm building relationships. I'm having conversations with them. I'm connecting with them. They are seeing me as their city councilwoman. And in fact, the other day, I cut my teeth in a little municipal politics. I helped a lady report her sidewalk crack. That was fun for me. It was great because I was able to help solve a problem. I have initiative. The one thing I will say is that I was so serious about running for office that when they opened up the filing date, I couldn't do it the first day because I had a work commitment, but I was there bright and early the next day. I announced a whole month before because I was ready. I was ready to serve you, Missouri City. My opponents decided in the 11th hour to file on the last day, one at 4:37, and the deadline was 5 o'clock. You tell me what commitment that is. Do they wake up and yawn and say, oh, I think I want to run for council? Or, I don't know. But I think what you know about me is that I started campaigning June 28th, and I have been at it full force. I'm dedicated. Everything I do, I'm dedicated to. And I would appreciate your vote. You haven't gotten to the end until you voted for Lynn. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Klauser. We did have one additional question submitted, and that question is, what is your plan to bring major business to Missouri City? And we're going to start with Mr. Pearson to answer that question.
Well, I'm going to go back initially to the comment that I made about Texas Parkway. And I do apologize. I need to look this way. There were a couple things that I started while I was on council before, and that was working with the new ownership of where the old Kroger was. We had several discussions about some things over there. COVID slowed some things down, but that project should have come to fruition. I also worked with the owner of the property where the Shipley's is, and we worked on a facade. Mind you, we were working within the confines of the TERS district. So those are two things, first of all, that I would work on, because that would allow us, if they upgrade the properties, it would allow us to bring some businesses over here. I work in retail, so to speak, not retail up front, but behind the scenes. I know that one of the conversations we've had here is we need to enhance our selection of our grocery stores here. One of the things we have to realize, first of all, and I'm speaking first on Texas Parkway, the city didn't do much land banking, meaning we don't have a lot of land that we can offer someone to come over and do a new build. So what I would do is seek out retailers that would also work with the business model that you would need over here. 85% of our population leaves here in the daytime to go elsewhere to earn a living. So we talk about restaurants. We want sit-down restaurants. Well, most sit-down restaurants work on the premise of a daytime lunch crowd. So what we would have to do is I would go out and seek businesses that have a business model that could work and sustain themselves with an evening crowd. Highway 6, there's a lot of development. Developers follow rooftops. So we don't have as much of a challenge over there. The median income is much higher over there. The car count also is much higher over there. So in reference to bringing businesses, I would start on Texas Parkway, working to encourage those businesses working within the TERS to enhance their properties so that we could bring a much higher level of retailers or businesses and services that are needed in the area.
All right, thank you. Mr. Mabel?
So I think it's important first to know where we are. That back in 2007 and 2008, the city did draft a plan for economic development along Texas Parkway. And as we see right now, it's still under development. Nothing's happening. What I would do to ensure that we can bring in major corporations is we've got to facilitate the process. We've got to be directly involved, meaning we need to partner with those businesses or those who own the land at Texas Parkway and Cartwright to follow up and ensure that we can actually partner with them. If that means through a public-private partnership, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's invest in our economy. But I also think it's important to not reinvent the wheel. When I go to Pearland, I go to the Fountains area, I know a developer made that happen. When I go to Sugarland and I go to Town Square, I know a developer made that happen. When I go to City Center, Memorial City, I know a developer made that happen. So I'm not asking about reinventing the wheel. I know that if I can work with those who've done it, who've been successful, and work with the business community, we can bring this to fruition down Texas Parkway and Cartwright once and for all. We need to ensure that we have the right people at the table to bring in major corporations. So that's how I would go about this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Clauser?
So, relationships. There's that word again. I've already met with some developers, and a few of them don't like to work with some of the council members. So those relationships are key. Texas Parkway, the traffic count is low, and we have residents that travel to Sugarland. But I think we have a lot of what we need. We really have a lot more of what we need than when we know what we know. If we would be able to rally around our current businesses and get our residents to really, really support those businesses and stay in our area and keep the money there, our traffic count goes up. Possibly, I know Reverend White is building some senior buildings here. So those things like that will help us get our traffic count and be more attractive to investors and developers. But I really think that we have to have those relationships. Maybe before, last year, maybe 2 years ago, it didn't happen, but there's always tomorrow. There's always another chance to sit at the table for it to make sense. So, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That does conclude the city council portion of this town meeting, and I'm going to yield back to Pastor Rudy White.
All right, thank you, Pastor Scott Nicholas. Appreciate that moderation as you've taken us through with the city council candidates. At this time, I'm going to ask Pastor Robert Childress to come. Pastor Childress will come, who has been certainly a pastor and a staple in this community, probably from almost 30 years, if not longer. So he will take us now as he allowed them to share their vision.
Good evening. I'm Pastor Robert Childress from the Covenant Glen United Methodist Church. Honored to be here. All reverence and respect to Pastor White, leader of the Fort Bend Pastors Association. I am delighted to be here because I believe that this is, if not one of the most important elections, not just here in the city of Missouri City, but also nationwide. I've been pastoring here in Missouri City for almost 30 years, and thank God for the opportunity to do ministry, be a public servant at such a time as this. And I want to say to these candidates who are here running for mayor, Fred Taylor, Robin Ellicott, who's present, thank you for your sacrifice in being a public servant, running for office. You lay it all out on the line, And I want to thank you tonight for being here and exposing yourself in this short season to make this commitment to this great city that we call Missouri City. I'm going to give each candidate 5 minutes each to state why you are running for mayor and to give your platform. But let me just say, first of all, please send your questions, those who are watching us by way of YouTube, send your questions to the chat box if you're watching virtually, and we will present the questions to the mayoral candidates after they finish their introductions. We'll first start with Robin Ellicott.
Good evening. My name is Robin Ellicott, and I have been a resident of Missouri City for 15 years. My wife, Tina, and I have 2 beautiful daughters whom we have raised in Missouri City for the past 15 years. I had the opportunity to serve Missouri City in the past from 2009 to 2015 as a District C council member for Missouri City. Prior to that, my interest started in city through the Homeowners Association, which I think is a key element in the growth of our city. Being able to attend HOA meetings and to be part of the board and to become the president, where I had the opportunity to interact with several city leaders, city departments, which allowed me to have my interest in serving in the city. During that time, the council at that time had appointed me to the city's Parks Board, where I spent 2 years working with some fantastic members of the Parks Board and learning how the city's park system worked. And also, that allowed me to get even more interest in city council. So in 2009, I came forward to run for Missouri City District C. I was able to beat the incumbent in office, but as I walked into city council, I had a warm welcome from everyone and understanding what it takes to run a city. First 2 years, it was an opportunity for me to learn how the city council worked and represent my areas, and I believe I did just so that fixing up sidewalks and infrastructures in District C allowed me to have 2 unopposed terms in office, which is in 2013 and 2015. Because I moved my home, I was not able to continue on District C as a council member, and I went to District D. But for the past 5 years, I have been sitting and watching Missouri City grow, attending Missouri City Council meetings and public events to see how this city has grown. In 2018, we had a change in the city. We had a new mayor after 23 years of having a mayor. I too, along with others, thought change is good, change is great, let's see what happens. I am disappointed. The fact that tonight the mayor is not here and the incumbents are not here to address the most important concerns and issues that are important to you. So with that being said, if you elect me as a mayor, I will make sure to be there with you as I've done in the past, for you as I've done in the past, and working with our entire city council to make sure that our city is growing to the next level. Lastly, I want to earn every single person's vote. I'm the candidate that is not endorsed by any party affiliation, not supported by any party chair, a total independent candidate because I want to serve the entire Missouri City, want to make sure that whether it's Texas Parkway side or Highway 6 or Cartwright, wherever it is, that I want to represent each and every one of you. Your issues are our issues. We as City Council fight to make sure that every person in every part of the city gets what they need. I will unify this council. I will make sure to bring each District A, B, C, and D council members together to what they need for their constituency base, and to make sure that we have a unified, where we are not going to be a 4-3 vote every time, which we will be a 7-0 vote. Thank you so much.
Fred Taylor.
Good evening. My name is Fred Taylor. I just want to say thank you to the pastors. I want to say thank you to the residents out there in Missouri City. I want to say thank you to all of the candidates that's up here. I'm running for Missouri City Mayor again. This is not my first time. I've done it before because I had the passion to continue to serve. And like this brother right here, he's serving the Marine Corps, and so have I. I spent 9.5 years in the Marine Corps because that's what I was told to do. My family is a military family. And so when it comes to serving, I know how to serve. And in Missouri City, I haven't been here as long as most people, but I have been here long enough to know that this is a good city. It's a beautiful city. And there's a lot of things in Missouri City that I like to see change. One of them is, let's not have barriers for churches to be able to build or rebuild. That's important, because I grew up in a small town called Leesville, Louisiana, where the church, the pastors, was the leaders. See, elected officials are just that. They're elected officials. The pastors was the leaders of the community. And so as a person who served from the age of 16 to serving right now, I don't have to be an elected official to serve, to be called mayor of city council. I've done it already through the works that I've done. And I know they want me to look at the camera, but I'm one of those that like to look at everybody in the room also. But it's important that the residents of Missouri City know that we need somebody that's competent, capable, and qualified. And see, right now, what we have right now in the office is somebody that's over their head. I know this because I serve as their particular campaign manager, and I knew what we had, and I said it when this person became the mayor of Missouri City. Now it's time for somebody that's competent, capable, and qualified. And you see, when I served in the Marine Corps, when I went into the Marine Corps, I knew it was going to be challenging. And it's the same thing going into this office as the mayor of Missouri City. And so I listed 3 points I wanted to do. I wanted to keep it simple. Yes, I do support mayor term limits, but I also support council term limits because we need fresh ideas. But most important, I chose 3 different things that I wanted to say and point out to the city of Missouri City. And just recently, I had a tragedy in my life, and that the loss of my mother. And one of the things we had to deal with and grapple with is, how does she pay her taxes? And so as mayor of Missouri City, I don't want 65 and older with $250,000 or less home have to pay taxes anymore. They should not have to struggle. They should not have to worry about whether they're going to eat or pay taxes. We're going to make sure we eliminate that. We're going to make sure that they don't have to leave out their homes and go to a senior citizen home. You know, we're going to make sure that they are comfortable. We're going to make sure that they can pass and expire in their own home. The second thing, let's talk about economic development. Smart, deliberate economic development. What do that mean? That means that we don't necessarily just let a burger joint come in, and we don't let a storage unit come in where we don't collect the taxes. We need to have a deliberate, focused economic development plan. And see, I'm a developer. I've done that, been there, done that. I know how it's done. I've talked to developers. I've talked to people who want to do business in Missouri City, and like Lynn Clauser said, they don't want to do business with a lot of council members, and they don't want to talk to them because they don't feel like they are talking to somebody who understands their language. They know that I do. I've spoken with them. And so if we talk about Mo City and Missouri City, we need a mayor that's going to bring unity. Someone who understands unity, somebody who understands how to bring divided people together. Trust me, as the only African-American person in my unit, the only person who looked like me in my unit in the Marine Corps, and then being the head of that unit, not because I wanted to put a black person, it's because they knew that I knew how to lead, and I'm going to continue to lead. But the last thing I want to say is, we need a place where we can have fine dining. We take so much taxes out of Missouri City into Sugar Land, into Pearland, that revenue that we lose, we can do the things that I'm talking about. And that is giving seniors that break that they deserve, giving property owners that's paying an enormous amount of property taxes a break. And if I'm mayor, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna work my tail off to make sure that everybody get tax break, because I think we deserve it. Thank you.
All right, our first question for tonight, and we'll start with you, Mr. Ellicott, and that is, the City of Missouri City commissioned a municipal utility district, which is a MUD study where they paid over $700,000. The study was completed well over a year ago, provided a number of recommendations to City Council. So what is your position on MUDs, and will any of the recommendations provided in the study be implemented or considered? If so, what is the timeline? And in your opinion, what should be the future status of annexing ETJs? I know that's a lot in that question. First dealing with the MUDs and then with the ETJs.
Sure. Thank you so much. MUD district, we need water in Missouri City. Water is one of the most important elements that we need to have. MUD districts were formed way back when we had our city council, and they do have their own board, they do have their own attorneys, and they run that district. And they do implement structures and put through that process to make sure that a subdivision is built. Today, in Missouri City, some of the MUDs are consolidated enough where we can't take that over. Some are not. The debt ratio is way high. So the $750,000 or $700,000, that study that's been done, that report is sitting in front of the mayor's office and council. I have not heard or seen anything that came through there. I have not had the opportunity to have that study to look at what the recommendation is. But whatever the recommendation would be, I would go back to the city council, but also the citizens of Missouri City to show a plan, to put together and share this plan, the report that came through, to make sure that is it feasible to take these MUDs over. And if it's not, then we need to look at it. This is not going to be something where it's either a mayor or a city council member can decide. I want to include at will of the people. I wanted to include the people to make sure that this process goes through smooth, if that is the intent of the process to be. Second question?
Second part of that question is, what should be the future status of annexing the extraterritorial jurisdictions, the ETJs of Missouri City?
Sure. So during this election, one of the things that we had recently, the city of Missouri City sent out a 24-page newsletter indicating right before the election what some of the achievements or accomplishments were. And it went to Siena. So they apparently sent it out through the zip codes, and a lot of people through social media were laughing and joking as to they don't even get to vote in Missouri City. So the annexation part, there are residents in Siena that says that Siena has to be another city. They want to make Siena to be another city. But at the same time, Missouri City, there has been a plan. When I've been on city council in 2015, right before leaving, the projection was somewhere around 2028 or 2030, that debt ratio will come down where it'll be feasible for the council to look at and to make sure to see that if it's feasible to bring that ETJ side, not just the Siena Plantation, but the Riverstone and then the elsewhere, to bring in to be part of Missouri City.
Mr. Taylor, you'd like to answer that?
I would. So let me give you a history of what MUD is, since I've been in development for years and years. My dad and I, when I was a kid, he built manholes. And so before cities and communities were built, you know, we'd be the first in there to lay the concrete and do all of that stuff. So I know that back and forth. MUD District was created for a reason. And it was a separate entity that was created just so they can say, I don't want to deal with all of this infrastructure, bringing in electrical, bringing in water and all of that stuff like that. Let's give it to them. Let's create a whole entire different entity for that. That's why it was created. And then it grew. You can't get rid of it. It's not going nowhere. And so that's that. That's why MUD District is there. So that's the history of it. So let's talk about what's their purpose. Their purpose is to collect and to maintain the infrastructure of all of our utilities and to maintain those utilities, and then they charge and pass on the pay to us. That's how that's is. So I'm gonna move to the second question because the MUD district is self-explanatory. And so if you, Pastor Chair, if you can read that second question.
Yeah, the second question was concerning the, in your opinion, what should be the future status of annexing ETJs? Let me just remind both to look into the camera, just for the pleasure of our viewing audience.
All right. And so the ETJs are very important. And I've heard a lot from Fresno, Tia Run, the back of Siena. I'm in the front of Siena. And so they're saying that they are their own city. Fresno saying we don't get water, we don't get fire, we don't get police and all that stuff like that. And if you ask half of them, they want to be annexed. The other half don't want to be annexed. And some of them don't even know they're part of Missouri City, like the Creek Mounts and some other areas like the Thundering Parks and stuff like that. And so the annexation of, let's say, Siena, they're saying it's going to cost too much. Well, when you look at it, it will because of the cost of what the infrastructure of what the MUD district and all of that put together. So the number is really, really high. But I look at it like this. We can annex that, but we let those residents continue to pay their particular portion off, and we take over the Sienas and the Fresno, but leave what they're doing in place to pay all of that off. We can do it, it can be done, and we can do it in a smart way where it doesn't cost the city of Missouri City, the current resident of Missouri City, any more money. Plus, after they pay that off, all of those rooftops and the residents of the paying taxes comes to Missouri City. We benefit. They benefit. We all benefit. We already providing police and fire to them and not getting no resident taxes coming back to us. We're providing it already. And so, yes, I do agree that we can do it, we should do it, and if I'm mayor, I'm gonna see how we can do it quicker than later.
Stay right where you are. We're gonna ask the second question. We'll start with you while you have the floor. Unlike the cities of Stafford, Pearland, and Sugar Land, our city has not been able to enjoy the benefits of a portion of our sales taxes due to us belonging to Metro. The question is, do you believe that the city has received enough benefits from that relationship? Should this relationship continue, has the city explored an option to withdraw from Metro?
I don't think we can because contractually we are locked in. But let me say my point of view of what I think that relationship with Metro exists and why it exists. I think it could be if they provide the services that I think we need. I think in order for our kids to be able to move around and go to certain jobs that don't exist in Missouri City, we probably need to put pressure on them to provide true public transportation. And so that's important to me as far as if we're going to continue with the relationship. Now, moving forward, if they choose not to do the things that we need them to do to provide the services for our particular residents, then yes, we look and explore some type of remedy to sever that relationship contractually, whatever we need to do. And that's why, I think we need the right city manager. In my opinion, the former city manager needs to come back because he knows exactly what needs to be done. He's a very smart guy. I believe that right now, with the right city manager doing the right job, we can make that happen.
All right. Mr. Ellicott.
The Metro tax has been in place for a long time. We do have a contract with them. Due to the contract regulations that we can't just, as 7 bodies of council, can't just say that we don't want to do this anymore or we're done with you because we have to pay that money back. Missouri City don't have that money to pay that amount back. With the 50 cents on a penny that we're getting back, that is going into our infrastructures. We use that for transportations, the light signals, the readjustments of new signals, and of course, put some into sidewalks, some into streets repairs to make this process going on. Today, in Missouri City, we're about 60 plus years old, probably around 64 years, if my memory serves me right. We have the older part of Missouri City, District A, and part of District B, that needs to have those streets and sidewalks repairs done. We have not had those opportunity to get it done. We had about 55 years or 60 years right now We need to get that dollar, we need to get that penny on a dollar and put those money directly into it. If elected, I have had the opportunity to walk District A and District B. I've listened to residents. They showed me the sidewalks. They showed me the streets that have not been touched, not been repaired. And if elected, I promise you, I will use that Metro tax dollars that we have and put it right back into the streets and repairs, just like I've done when I was elected in District C, to make sure that dollar is not going anywhere else but to be spent on, especially in District A, where our mayor served for 6 years, and these streets and drainages that needs to be connected and done. And I promise you that, if elected, that will be my first task. Thank you.
Ms. Alcat, stay right where you are. We're going to ask another question. We have several people from our community that are watching, and there's a question coming from the community, and Pastor Bell will pose the question.
Thank you, and God bless each of you for being here on this evening. We have a question from Roger Gamble. What are your plans to attract young adults and young families to live within the boundaries of Missouri City? East Side, within FM 1092, Highway 6, Fort Bend County, Toll Road, and US 90. From Roger Gamble to the mayoral candidates.
Thank you for that question. This was something that I had recently posted on social media, is the fact that Texas Parkway has always been, as long as I can remember being on council, part of election. Every mayoral election and to a large city council election, this was a hot topic. And it comes and it goes. We're back here again in 2 years discussing the same thing. But what I like to propose is not have apartments. While on city council, I voted against apartments. And I took a beating for that. But instead, the Rice Village concept that I had put on social media and my platform to get the developers to come out here to grow our city. As you can see, the medical center is a hub that a lot of the employees in medical center are to say that they're living in Siena. They drive back to the community, the bedroom community that we are, and then they drive back to the medical center. I want to propose to put the type of condominiums or the type of individual infrastructures and places that young adults would come to that Texas Parkway, whether it's on Texas Parkway side and Fort Bend Toll Road, or on Cartwright, because we do have a younger population that are growing in Missouri City. We want to continue to keep them here in Missouri City. We want to make sure that the redevelopment of Texas Parkway needs to be looked hard. We have studies that we've spent money making sure that these studies telling the council, entire city council, along with the mayor, onto what we needed to get it done. As someone mentioned here, some of the developers don't even want to talk to this current city council because of their relationship, because of them not understanding what needs to be done. If elected, I promise you that I will get these developers to come down to make sure, and I will implement and put board and commission with people, not just to get me reelected back, but to make sure there are citizens in our city that are qualified to serve on P&Z and Parks Board and other commission to understand what it takes and understand this type of dynamics to make sure that this type of platform will grow in our city. Boards and commissions are not just to get reelected or to support a mayor or a candidate. So I wanted to be clear that we have to go out. We do not need developers coming in here to say that they're putting a $200,000 house in these open, vacant areas, but we need to make sure that we attach the young, and that type of crowd is what we're looking for. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Taylor?
So let's just keep it simple. Again, what attract young people? It's schools, it's churches. You see, most people move into neighborhood based on their school and the rate and the classification of their school. See, we have Thurgood Marshall, we have Hunters Glen Elementary over there in the Texas Parkway area, Glover Elementary. Those schools need to be tore down and rebuilt. We need to bring in real cable, real internet and stuff that, they don't have over there. They're running wires up and down the floor in order to have cable for this computer and that computer. We need to really focus in on rebuilding our schools so young people will want to come here. And then the mayor oversees, or the mayor of the students that lives in Missouri City. So the mayor needs to be at the Fort Bend Independent School District at their meeting talking and putting forth whatever need to be put forth for those students that live in Missouri City. We should not say that's the ISD problem. It's the mayor's problem, because the mayor is the mayor of that particular student. And so one of my focuses is working with the schools, working with the principal, working with the neighborhood, and making sure that we have good schools, rebuild schools, new schools, not dilapidated schools. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, again, we need to reinvest into our churches and not let churches be pushed out because there's a rule, because they don't pay taxes. We don't want churches to rebuild. See, those are two things that I have the foundation of. See, when I grew up, again, we had good schools and we had good churches. And so as a young person, you want to come there because you want your kids to grow up in a great neighborhood that can go to a good school with good teachers, and then on Sundays or whatever days that they want to service, go to church. And so when we start off with those two things right there, there's no way and there's no how that we cannot have a good community. The last thing I want to say about that is what one of my number one plan is: eliminate property taxes when they turn 60. So if I'm 25 years old and I have a house that I need to pay off, in 30 years, I'm 55. All I got to do is wait 10 more years, and then I don't have to pay no more taxes. So I'm looking forward to that. So I want to move to Missouri City because there's a benefit to come to Missouri City as a young person, paying off their house and knowing that the payoff is I don't have to pay taxes no more. So that's how you attract young people: good schools, good churches, and no taxes when I turn 65.
Stay right where you are. The next question is for you. You keep bringing up churches, and this Fort Bend Pastors Association, we appreciate that because all of us are pastors. There are several more questions that we have, and there are several more questions that's coming from the community. And both of you are given some wonderful answers and great information. So I'm going to ask, if you keep them down a little bit, I believe we can get to all these questions because you are drawing interest. Amen. So let me ask this question here. There seems to be a systemic bias, since you keep mentioning churches. This is very important to me as well. There seems to be a systemic bias within the government of Missouri City that this is not conducive. The city of Missouri City is not conducive to allowing churches to purchase or lease space to hold services on main thoroughfares. Since churches provide enormous positive impact socially and economically, this perceived bias is difficult to understand. Is this your understanding, or is this a misperception of the facts? If it is your understanding, then why is this the case, if we may ask?
I don't think it's a misunderstanding. What I think it is policy that's in place. I think the statute, I think it's on the charter that says churches does not pay taxes, and thus they don't bring a benefit. I beg the difference. Again, I say I come from a small community, and I've seen the benefit. I'm up here running for mayor because of what churches have done and what schools have done. And so the first thing that I would do in Missouri City, since we have that rule, is to eliminate, work with council that believe, like I believe, like-minded, that churches bring a benefit. And I truly believe churches bring a benefit, and I'm going to continue to harp on that churches bring a benefit to the community because it attracts people that are godly, that are Christian. It also brings young people in where they can raise their kids in a good school system and then turn around and go to church. So that is a policy that I think Missouri City they have put it into the charter. They have put it into places where, when churches want to renovate, they have to go through so many hula hoops and stuff like that. And I would eliminate that if I was mayor of Missouri City. And that would be higher on my list, I can say that, that I would eliminate that particular practice.
Mr. Ellicott.
Myself, being a Christian and a Catholic, I grew up around church. I grew up, the center of our family, my family, is built upon church. We need the church in our lives today more than ever. I'm raising 2 young kids at my house, And with everything that's going on out there today is that we pray about to make sure that these kids have the guidance that needed. Now, talking about church being built with Missouri City policy, I'm not aware of a policy that's in place that won't allow churches to be built, but I would definitely will go back and look at it. And I do know that as churches, as members of the church do come forward to build churches, they're always looking at and trying to see how, if that particular land is being bought, if it can be, used for another zoning. So we have to look at some of the zonings. Our zonings on Missouri City Council has been there for so long. We need to go back and relook at the entire zoning to see that what can be built. Sometimes that we talk about, certain businesses are the only one that are coming to certain part. There is a zoning that allows each businesses or the type of businesses to come that can only come into that particular segment. So we need to go back and relook at that zoning that's been there. And I would be, if elected, that would be one of my goals, to make sure that the planning and zoning, along with the city council, to relook at some of these policies that we have, to make sure that it is at the level of 2020 and moving forward, to make sure that our city needs what it needs to be better and to move forward.
Stay where you are. We have more questions coming from our audience.
To the mayoral candidates, I have two short questions. I'll just give both of them because you can take care of them at the same time. From GGSS saying, we are paying more property taxes than Sugar Land because we do not have enough sales tax revenues. How do you bring business to Missouri City to increase revenue? And then the final question is from Charles Stevenson. Of course, the mayor did not show up. Better question is, where has the mayor been for the last 2 years?
Sure. I'll take that part of the first question. Businesses that we're talking about in Missouri City. It is true that City of Sugar Land collects more sales tax than City of Missouri City. And our family and friends in Missouri City and our residents, if they want to have a fancy meal or sit-down restaurants, they do end up going to Sugar Land, which for them forecast about a $20 million in jump versus our sales tax. Typically, our sales tax is around $35 million, and City of Sugar Land is about $60 or $65 million. So they definitely have that advantage of it. What we can do to bring those businesses in Missouri City, we need office spaces. We need to look at our major thoroughways, which are Highway 6, Texas Parkway, Cartwright, to get some daytime population that's there so that allows these businesses to be successful. Whether it's, I'm concentrating on the Siena aspect of that side, where at one time it was told that we will have a village concept in Siena. And that's not there. As a mayor elected, I will sit down with these developers to make sure that what can they do to bring the businesses. And also, it's a mayor's responsibility to go out there and to make sure that we reach out to these businesses to get those businesses back here. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. US 90 and Beltway 8. The commercial side of the business, we have Benny Keith, we have Niagara Water, we have several other industry buildings that are more than 20,000, 40,000 square foot. Our mayor, Yolanda Ford, and another city council member who's running on this election, Chris Preston, voted against that. Now, while our city and our Fort Bend County EDC, along with water district, spend the money up front to get that happening, that would increase jobs in Missouri City. That would bring in a population where we can have more restaurants on Texas Parkway that can support that type of businesses. Where they voted against it because it might be a traffic pattern and the traffic might be more. Today, if you go back and look, that's there. And those buildings that are there, they're operating. They have jobs from our Missouri City. And there's no traffic pattern. So you have to look at same concept for on the Fort Bend Toll Road, along with even on Highway 6, to bring in that investors, have them come in to do the businesses in Missouri City. And sometimes we have to go after them and not necessarily they come back after us.
Mr. Taylor.
Well, this is my wheelhouse. Number one, to bring businesses in, you got to be attractive, okay? And so the first thing about it is Texas Parkway is the mouth of Missouri City. That's like the face. That's the first thing people should see, and it should be the most pretty thing. So we may have to have some shared hurt. That means that we may have to tear down some businesses up and down Texas Parkway so we can build a business or a shopping center strip that reflect their image. I know HEB for a fact. That's one of the things they say. We're not going to put our HEB in one of those dilapidated type of buildings that's on Texas Parkway. We may have to do some shared hurt. And I say shared hurt because the people that's in there, the businesses, you know, they may have to move and relocate. But that's what it's going to take to bring in the quality business that we need. You know, Robin is right. We spend a whole lot of money in other cities where that revenue can be right here. And so when we need to be deliberate, we need to be smart about the type of development we bring into Missouri City. We need to make sure that those businesses are going to attract jobs. Now, part of that is making sure when they come here, they hire Missouri City residents. That way they live here, they work here, and hopefully they spend here. And so we need to do all of those things so we can make sure that when businesses do come here with the right counsel, with the right like-minded counsel, we can bring in no business. See, I'm a small business owner. I don't wait for them to come to me. I go out there and seek. I advertise. We need to get off our backside. We need to go to these offices. We need to go to these corporate businesses and say, we need you to come to our city. And that's the first thing that I'm going to do, because that's the only way they're going to be re-engaged to look at Missouri City again. They have looked at Missouri City before, and they have been turned down because it's been the notion that we are a bedroom community and we don't want you. That's why HEB, that's why the rest of them have moved to Highway 6, and we have 4 or 5 HEB up and down Highway 6. We have none up and down 2234. But when I'm mayor, we're going to bring them back because we're going to encourage. We're going to date them. We're going to make sure they want to be here. We're going to encourage. We're going to find ways to make them want to be with us. And when I'm mayor, we're going to do that. Now, it's going to take some type of tax incentive because those other businesses ain't paying taxes. We cannot afford to give away the bond. We cannot afford to give away everything expecting we're going to get something, because those taxes are going out the door because there's nothing in Missouri City that will attract our residents to stay here for a 40-year anniversary or even a high school graduation or a college graduation. They go out to Missouri, to Sugar Land or to Pearland. But we can bring in new businesses if we was to go out there and talk to them. See, I'm one of those developers that people used to come to. I'm one of those that build a Walmart. I build the dog track down 45. I know how to do it, so I know their language. I know what they want. They want to be coded. And if we need to do that, then we do it. And that's how we bring businesses. That's how we lower taxes for the property owners. That's how we do what we need to do for the residents of Missouri City.
Let's be redundant. Say where you are. Let's be redundant with some of the questions we asked some of the council, persons running for councils. And I think that some of those questions, I think the audience and people who are listening would love to hear your answers as well. One of those questions were, do you support our current form of government, the city manager run? If not, what form would you like to see and why? In other words, what are your thoughts about the restructuring of the charter of Missouri City?
All right, so let's keep it real. Who want to bring that argument anyway? And it's a guy named Michael Harris that want to control certain things. If he can put his puppet in there to make sure that she do the things that he wants to do so he can get the contract. So I'm going to keep it real with everybody in Missouri City so you know why this is on the ballot. This is on the ballot not because it's something that's broken, it's because somebody wants something to benefit from. That's just what it is. See, the current government that we have works fine. It works perfect. When you want to change that government because you want the mayor to start getting paid, there's a reason behind that. And so I'm not going to support that. I hope the residents of Missouri City vote it down. It's not something good for the city. We're not in a position financially to start paying council, to paying the mayor, and that's what it leads to. So no, we're not going to do that.
What is your, let me piggyback on that and ask, what is your position related to mayoral term limits?
I believe we should. It brings fresh new ideas, and you know, at my age, I don't want to be 70, 72 being a mayor. And I think we should have term limits, 4 years or two years or whatever it needs to be, so we can bring in somebody else. The same thing, not only with mayor, but we need to do it with city council as well.
Mr. Ellicott. Sure. Let me pose, you need me to pose the question again?
Yes, please.
And the question was, do you support our current form of government, the city manager run? If not, what form would you like to see and why? In other words, what are your thoughts about the restructuring of the charter of Missouri City?
Sure. After 2015, when I left City Council in 2016, I had the opportunity to serve on the Charter Review Commission that came up at that time. There were several discussions that came about, including term limits, including looking at the city manager form of government, and it was voted down. And I too agree with all the candidates that are up here. What we got going on right now is working. City of Missouri City is not in a position, we're not City of Houston, we're not in a position to have a city mayor form of government. We needed to have what's working right now, which is a city manager form of government. As City Council, we just need to make sure that as an entire council, body of council, we're looking to make sure that we have a CEO that is in line to do what we have hired him to do, to make sure that the finance and the budget is being balanced, and also to run the day-to-day operations of the city, which includes our fire, our police, and the rest of the departments, our parks board, our public works, to make sure things are running smooth. And I agree. On term limits, that was the second question, right?
Correct.
On term limits, I believe I'm the only candidate that have publicly posted on the website during this election for term limits. I called for 2 4-year term limits, which allows similar to what City of Sugar Land has. And I put it in my platform just because I believe that was one of the things that I tried right before leaving City Council to make sure that we move the election to November. Part of that was giving more people an opportunity to vote, and the part 2 was to put term limits. I believe mayor or city council members should have a 6 or 8-year terms, and they do come in with the goal, and they're able to work and establish. And I believe the question that was asked about the young kids today, and I believe those who are at home watching this know that you should have an opportunity to be on city council and serve the public if that's your interest. And we want to make sure that when you are the future of our city, and you need to be part of this city to grow our city to the next level.
If either of you guys are elected mayor, would you all hold a State of the City annual event for the citizens of Missouri City to know what the state of our city is and the vision for the city for that year?
Absolutely. State of the City is so important to our residents. That is a platform for the mayor and council to tell the public what we have done, our accomplishments, our future aspirations, our goals, and what we're projecting the city to be in the next 2 years, the 5 years, and 10 years with the goals that we have. The State of the City has not been done for the past 2 years, and yet you and I know at home that we got the 24 pages of Missouri City newsletter right before an election showing all the accomplishments. If you have a State of the City, this gives the public, the residents, an opportunity to ask questions to the mayor or council and to give that opportunity for them to discuss what the future is. Sending a 24-page document at the last minute right before the election to show your accomplishments is not what I consider a State of the City. A State of the City is a direct interaction between your mayor, your council members, and the residents, and our business community want to know what's coming up. So it's a big opportunity, and it's an opportunity that's been missed for the past 2 years?
Mr. Taylor.
See, the state of the city is a report card. It says what I've done from the time I got in or got elected to now. And so when you don't have the state of the city, you're afraid of your record. You've been lying, you've been hiding, you're an introvert, and you don't do the things that you promised you were gonna do when you got elected. And see, that's one of the reasons why we have not had the state of the city for the last 2 years. We don't wanna show our report card. It's kind of like coming home with all F's to mom and daddy. And mom and daddy is the residents of Missouri City. And so, yes, I would have the state of the city, not only at the end of the year, but every week, every council, because we need for council to report back to the city some of the things that the city is requesting. It's called being responsive to the city. And so in order to be responsive, you need to let them know, but you also need to listen to what they're saying. And so when you don't want to listen, and when you don't want to respond, then you don't do the state of the city. And that equals you need to go. And so that's why I'm running for mayor, because I'm responsive. Whether I'm mayor or not, I'm going to be responsive to my community. And I think the person who's the mayor should be very, very vocal, should be the Pied Piper. When this COVID-19 hit, that person should have been on television. That person should have been saying, hey, we need help. That person should have been saying a lot of things that was not said. And so you don't have the state of the city because you don't want the city to know your report card. So I will support it. I will do it every and each time.
Stay where you are. We have more questions coming from our audience.
Dina Lee wants to know, do we not have an economic developer? Do we not have an economic development developer? And the second question is from Sandra K. Mayoral candidates, why build more apartments on Texas Parkway for young professionals when there is unfinished apartment complex that have been inactive for many months?
Okay, let me see if I can unpack that a little bit. The first part of the question is, do we have an economic development czar, whatever? I don't know. We haven't received the state of the city. We haven't received a report card. We don't know who's working for the city. We don't know where we are right now. So that should have answered that question, because as the mayor, we should have been informed on who we have, what's being done, and so on and so forth. I don't know, and I can guarantee you a lot of the Missouri City residents don't know, because I'm more informed because I'm there in the city and in the residents in the city more than anybody, you know, what I think. Now, the second part of the question was what, if you don't mind just saying it real quickly for me.
Ms. K, Sandra K, wanted to know why
Apartments.
build more apartments on Texas Parkway for young professionals when there is unfinished apartment complexes that have been inactive for many months.
Okay, so Missouri City is a suburb. You know, I'm not really fond of apartments. I mean, if they come, they bring more, you know, rooftops, more multifamily and stuff like that. But Missouri City have enough land. We have rentals in Hunters Glen 1 and some in Hunters Glen 2. And so what we can do is bring incentive for them to want to come as young family. And that starts by saying, hey, in 30 years, your taxes will be forgiven. The second thing is you got the best schools in the country, or at least in the county. And so building apartments, I'm not the biggest fan of building apartments. Senior citizen home, I'm most definitely not a fan of them, housing them like that. I believe they should stay in their home. But when we have apartments that's not occupied completely, yeah, we don't need to be on more apartments when we can use that land for something more valuable that can pay more taxes. And so that's where I feel about, you know, bringing in apartments and having some that's already there and using the land that we need, that we are landlocked already, because we got Pearland coming in on us, we got Sugar Land squeezing in on us, and we don't have any more land other than to tear down and rebuild. And so let's not build more apartments, let's bring in some really anchor stores that can bring revenue to Missouri City.
Mr. Ellicott.
I believe the first question was about the economic development. Is it director or? Right. To my understanding, that we had one, and the director is no longer working for Missouri City. I don't know what transpired, and I know that we had a director that's been in office for several years, came to us from City of Sugar Land. So as we are now looking forward to hire a new city, a director for the development, but I'm not sure how to answer that question because I don't know what that person is looking for. The apartments, I do want to talk about, like I said earlier, I have voted against the apartments. And these are not apartments in Texas Parkway. These are even apartments in Siena. And I felt that apartments, having multifamily is good for the city, but multifamily, when we put so much multifamily housing complexes in Missouri City, my concerns were, do we have enough police? Do we have the infrastructure and the roads and to hold the traffic? So we have to look at a lot of that things. And talking about young families from, coming into Missouri City. A lot of young families who are starting their family are not going to be spending $400,000 and $500,000 and buying those homes. They're looking for something that they can get by until they have 1 or 2 kids. So that's why if you ever gone down to that Rice Village concept, you see these young families who are just having 1 or 2 kids are buying those because they are more accessible for them. The maintenance on it is very little, and that allows them to be there for 10 years and then turn around and move to a true suburb like what Missouri City is. Now, the unfinished apartments that we're talking about on Texas Parkway, I'm not aware of, I'm not on city council right now, so I don't know what area that you were referring to. But if there are apartments that are unfinished, I would go back to the planning department to see where they are and to see why it's not being completed and what's the holdup, who is a developer, who is a builder for that, and who's a property owner to see what's happening. Now, if it's being built and the capacity is not there, that's something that we need to talk to the management company to see what's going on Texas Parkway. So if there could be a little bit more clarity on what section or what area, I think I could have answered it a little bit better. Thank you.
Mr. Elliott, while you have the floor, I'm going to ask that you stay. I'm going to give each candidate an opportunity to give your closing remarks. If there's any special message that you'd like to send out to those who are watching us virtually, this is your opportunity.
First of all, thank you so much for being in front of the computer or at your home watching this debate. I truly had the pleasure and honor to be on this platform with all candidates that are up here. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Fort Bend Pastors Association for allowing us to be here to talk about our city and how important it is for our city candidates to be here to discuss these issues going back and forth. I had the opportunity to serve you in District C for 6 years. Prior to that, as a City Parks Department. Today, I do currently serve on an HOA board for my neighborhood. So I went from City Council back to HOA. My passion of service to our residents resonates with exactly what I'm doing. This election is very key and important to me. The reason for it is we have so much stuff to do. We have so many things that are important. In the last 2 years, when our current mayor got elected, I too thought, okay, we have a change, a new change will be here, and that comes with opportunities, growth. We have not seen that. 2 years, it took our current mayor 2 years to fire a city manager that we had here. And still can't, I haven't seen any documentation that shows that the clarity behind firing that city manager. And then hiring a city manager that we have currently now. It appalls me to understand that going through a communication department versus a HR department to bring in candidates, and then hiring a firm to only use for part services to bring in that city manager. And then to allowing just the two candidates for them to go through the process of background where one drops off, now we have left with one person to hire. The backdoor deals, why? Why did this happen? This is our city, which we love. Each one of you and I, and the candidates sitting up here, we care about our city. We care about our streets. We care about our residents. This was not the way that it should have been done. And then the city staff right now can't be talked to. Police department, you know, when you run into them, they don't want to talk to anybody about their issues because they're afraid. We must not lead in fear. We must not lead in fear. We need to lead with integrity, compassion, and with respect from everyone that's in Missouri City. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter whether you live in District A or District B or C or D. We are all together. We're in it for together. It is our tax dollars. It is our money that's being spent. We need to make sure that we have an equal representation. The simple fact that you have every other candidate that's up here, except for the incumbents, is disappointing. And Missouri City, I ask you to look at this and make history in this election. We need to change in 2020 to come up with a new direction, to move forward. And I want to thank all of those behind the scenes that block walked, that hit the miles, running every day, putting out signs, yard signs, getting the message across. Without you, this campaign is not going to go anywhere. I have had a lot of pressure of party affiliations. When you go through, ask you, what party are you? What do you belong to? And if not, their decisions is wrong. I say to you, Missouri City is one city, and if you elect me as your next mayor, I will lead this city with everybody together and with integrity, compassion, make sure that each of you have a seat at the table. And I will make promise to you, my number one concern would be to fix those streets where our current mayor resides that forgot to do or have not done so. Thank you so much. I look forward to earning every single one of your vote to be the next mayor of Missouri City. Thank you, and God bless you.
At this time, we'll hear from Mr. Taylor.
I want to take a moment because on the back of my push card, I wrote something that I truly mean, and I just want to read it to the city of Missouri City and the residents. But first of all, I want to thank everybody, the Pastor Association, the candidates that's up here, and most of all, the residents of Missouri City. And so I'm going to read this. It says, as your mayor of Missouri City, I will stand firm in my belief and conviction to uphold our democratic value with complete transparency. I am committed to bring quality business that create jobs for Missouri City residents and tax relief for our seniors and property owners. That means a lot to me because I think that's the current problem that every resident in Missouri City is facing, and that's the tax issue. And so as mayor of Missouri City, my number one focus is to try to see if we can bring businesses that will bring true residual tax, I guess you can say relief, because that's what it'll be if we can bring quality business here. And so for the last 15 years, I've been here in Missouri City. I came here not as a person who was born here, but I came here willingly because it was a city that my brother stayed in. And I wanted to be next to him before he died. I wanted to be in a city that he felt like, hey, coming out of Fifth Ward and City Gas, you know, we are moving on up. I know y'all heard that term a lot from the Jefferson. But it really was. It was something that we aspired to go to where they had sidewalks, where they had trees and lights and all of the things that we didn't have when I was growing up. And so I want to make sure that as mayor of Missouri City, I can do that. And so the current mayor right now, and I can say this boldly, doesn't have a plan, did not have a plan, and still will not have a plan if reelected. I know once I'm elected, I've already had the plan. I've already talked to the pastors. I already talked to all of the schools and administrators and the ISDs to make sure that as mayor, I'm going to work with you. I'm going to continue to work with you because that's what it's going to take to move this city forward. And together with the pastors, the school, and all of the new council, hopefully that we have, working with me, we can move Missouri City forward. And I promise you that. And as mayor, you can count on my word to be visible. You can count on me being around the neighborhood, knocking, going to your barbecues, your crawfish balls, and everything, because that's what it takes, somebody that's visible. So I want to thank you guys. God bless you.
Okay, I'm going to give the council's 2 minutes wrap up, and then we will finish. Beginning with Reginald, and then we can flow around.
First, I just want to also say thank you to the Fort Bend Pastors Association once again for allowing us to come out tonight. Listen, I stand before you as a candidate for at-large position number 1. I've served on council. I've served on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I work with numbers every day. I understand when we talk about Texas Parkway, I can tell you that I've sat down with our former economic development director, Joe Esch. We talked about some opportunities that are available on Texas Parkway. Every candidate here tonight, along with our current mayor, our 2 current incumbents for the at-large positions, have made Texas Parkway a topic of their campaign. No disrespect to any of the candidates here tonight. I was on council for 1 year. In that year, I sat down with 2 of the property owners. One was a representative, the other one was the actual owner. I'm effective. I look at numbers. I understand that on Texas Parkway in the city of Missouri City, 85% of the population leaves every day to go elsewhere. We need to create ways where we can bring businesses here, but we need to create ways to have daytime traffic in the city to bring some of those businesses here. I'm committed to serving the city. I have no hidden agenda. I believe in doing what's right, and I also believe in listening to the citizens. And I'm your candidate to represent everyone that lives in the city of Missouri City, irregardless to what color you are, what race you are, what party affiliation you are. This is a nonpartisan race, and we need to approach it that way, and we need to look at everybody and have the willingness to reach across the table and work with everyone. Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, Lynn Hauser.
And I have to echo my thanks as well. I love my city. I keep saying that because I do. I want to work with you and I want to serve you. One of the best things that's happened to me since I've been on the campaign trail is getting out, meeting each one of you. For me, it's like the highlight of my day. I get to hear your issues and then I start trying to solve them because that's what I am. I'm an advocate, I'm a helper. I want to make solutions to the problems that we're having. I think change is good. Some of the issues that we're seeing, that we're experiencing, that we've been complaining about, sometimes it takes a shift to make things happen. So I want you to think about that as you go and cast your ballot. Let's get some new meat, new fresh meat in these seats. Let's get some new fresh thinking and some people that are motivated to be here. You see all these empty seats? That should tell you something. We're motivated. I'm motivated. And I want to work with you, and I want to work for you, Missouri City, as your next City Council at Large, position 2. Thank you.
So I want to thank the Fort Bend Pastors Association for this opportunity. I want to thank the candidates because we're all united in making a change here in our community. And I want to thank you out there for tuning in and hearing us. And I heard a few themes today. And one of them was Texas Parkway. Another was Cartwright. I heard themes about the economy, and I heard themes about cohesion on the city council. And I just want you to think tonight about having a finisher, having someone that's going to take that passion that you've heard tonight and deliver on the city council. I've been fighting for people in a variety of ways. As I said, I served in the Marines. I've been a waiter. I've catered to people from all walks of life. And I've helped people in one of the most meaningful ways, and that's helping them start a career. And that's why I want to serve you, and I want to deliver for you. I want to elevate our economy. I want to elevate the lives of people here in our community. I want to focus on you first. I want to focus on residents in the heart of our city. And so I look forward to having your support. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much for your sharing your vision, and we trust that as those of you who are voters, that you will come out and vote, because it's your vote that's going to make a difference. And so again, I want to thank all these pastors for gathering, Pastor Young again, Pastor Scott Nichols, Pastor O'Neill, Pastor Childress, Pastor Destry Bell. I appreciate your support in this community, seeking to make changes and to be on the forefront. May God bless you. If you'll stand with me now, I will ask God to bless our time again. Look, please go out and vote. Go out and vote. If you don't vote, we can't make a difference. We can't make a difference, but your vote can make a difference. Father, how we do thank you afresh for these moments you've allowed us to share. And Father, we pray for these candidates who are running. You know, Lord, those of you who has your heart and your vision, and we pray, oh God, that you will let them flourish. We pray that you will put the candidates, Lord, on the hearts of the people that will vote, that we will have a city that will honor you and will seek to do the best for the people. We love you. Give us traveling grace as we leave this place now, and we'll be careful to give you the glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right. Thanks again. And thank you, those of you who are viewing with us as well. Thank you for your great questions also.